I still to this day I'm not very good at talking about it. Just this was how it's affected me. I did speak to a counsellor. I had a few sessions at uni, but only I think it was in my second or final year that I decided to do that. So it might have been 2 years after that I felt I should talk to someone professionally. And since then I've thought about it again, but it's something, I don't know, I think there's a lot of stigma against talking to someone when you're feeling like this, because you always want someone to understand, but unless they've gone through it, they never will.
What I needed was to talk to somebody who had had a sudden loss like me.
I didn't want to get a job. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to, because I'd have to perhaps mention Lindsay, or it was just too hard. It was just luckily it was, yeah. But now I don't know what's changed.
But I spoke to Shirley at MRF, and she was amazing, and she listened to me, and she did put me in touch with a befriender, a lady who hadn't been quite so sudden, but was similar age, with boys similar age to mine, and I talked to her once.
One good tip that I received, and this was from MRF, in terms of how to manage grief, was why not write it down in a book? And yes, I've got the book that I use. It is aimed at being about Lindsay and my thoughts about Lindsay. It has drifted because I lost my mum in November, so there's been a bit in there. But it's surprising. It's one of those things that there's a lot written for a start, and then you start to slow down in your writing. So, and I think there's probably a way of siphoning out from your head everything that you need to. It doesn't mean to say it won't come down in the writing again, because you do repeat it, as I can see. But it allows you to put it somewhere so that you can reflect upon at some time. I
write to her sometimes. I used to do it a bit more than I do now, and part of my New Year's resolution actually is to write to her, maybe even if it's just once a month, and even if it's just not even writing to them, but getting your feelings out if you don't feel comfortable talking like me, but also just to realise that the loneliness and being alone is so normal when you've lost someone.
I growth myself with meningitis, understanding it, and that's where MRF have been amazing and really helped me, because I went to befrienders meetings, a training, and then I became an ambassador. I learned a lot about meningitis. I think that's made it real for me. It's made me understand it, but also in a way accept that what happened, because I was in such shock and so numb for so long, it made me accept that he died, I suppose. I never thought he hadn't died, but just that reality, he wasn't ever coming back. So I think it helped me to accept that.
I found a good relief in exercise, especially this last year. And Laura used to run, so I do feel that extra bit closer to her, because I hate running and I want to start, but exercise and doing workouts and stuff at the minute has made me feel that extra bit closer to her, because she loved running and she loved being outside. So it definitely helps, and it puts your mind in a better place where you can just relax and not think about anything else.
But actually going out into the garden and digging and doing all those physical things really helped me in those very early days. So since then I've sort of kept on gardening and doing some fitness sort of things, keeping myself as fit and active as I could. So and it gives me some structure. When I wasn't at work, it gave me some structure to my day. I think that's important.
If I'd got a bit of advice to give somebody, it'd be tough and it'd hurt, and you ain't going to feel strong, and you're not going to feel brave, and you're not going to feel any of those things. But actually talk to somebody.
And if talking helps, and talking helped me, really helped me. So if you can talk to somebody, that is, for me, was the best thing.
And don't avoid talking about the person or the loved one that you've lost. Keep the memory alive. This is something that we're learning to do now. And one of the things I try and do is talk about Lindsay in present tense, not past. because to me, Lindsay is with me. She's here.
If you can't talk, then you can do it through art. If you can draw, you could write it down. You could knit it in some way, but in a therapeutic way. There's more ways that you can express it through a drawing, through knitting, crochet, gardening, whatever, until there comes a point where you actually find it easier to talk.
We all need routine, and I think if you can put a routine back in.
When you're struggling, you don't have that ability to give yourself structure. But if you can find that, that's what I would do, would be to find some sort of structure, even if that is just setting the alarm and listening and getting out of bed and making a cup of tea in the morning and then going back and reading a book.
Still getting up in the morning at the right time. You might do something different, as I now do, but, you get up in the morning and then you work through your day. You have breaks when you ought to have breaks, and then in the evening just sit and relax and watch telly, or say take the dog for a walk again. Definitely
just take each day as it comes. Sometimes I wake up and it feels like I've just heard the news yesterday, and my whole day, it's like there's a rain cloud over my head. It's horrible. But I think you can't prepare for something like this. You genuinely just have to deal with it every step of the way.
It's okay to cry. It's okay to scream. It's okay to have good days. It's okay to have bad days. Everything is okay. It's not wrong.
So be kind to yourself. And also, there is no right or wrong way of grieving.
You have got support around you, whether it's friends or strangers, and take advantage of that. Don't isolate yourself, because it's just going to make you feel worse, because I did that and I regret it a lot.
Don't be on your own. Don't think you're on your own, because you're not. There is somebody, there is somebody who will listen.
I know Lauren's mum used to tell me life's too short, which we learnt the hardest way. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself knowing that she lost her life, not by her choice, but I'm deciding to just stop living mine because I'm upset. And she would have done the same. She would have kicked me if I just did that. She honestly would have hated me. She was such a liver and a go-getter, and I think it wouldn't have made sense.
And I'm lucky. I think that's what I would say now, is I can look back and think, I'm lucky, and I'm lucky that I was happily married and that I was loved, and I have lovely memories. So I try to look on the positive sides of my life now, even though I've had a really big tragedy, a really big tragedy, and, the thing I wouldn't want to, but I feel that it's my duty to make my life worthwhile, because John was stolen, his was stolen from him.